Hello, so if you have your Intimidate or your Persuade skill up to 80 or 78, when you arrive on Tartarus, a guard will actually provide you his ID if you pass that skill check. So that means you can sneak around on the station, but you'll also get help from your factions, the ones you helped. So this can be a little weird or a little interesting, depending on how you see things. So I'll just skip everything and just run straight past everything. Those are the Mardets. That's a ship from the ground baker. That's a nice little touch. I don't really see the point of looting and killing everything or, playing this in a longer fashion. Let's just go down.
The labyrinth on Tartarus. Task classification, easy peasy.
Entering the labyrinth's the easy part. Making it back out. I'm still trusting your plan on that one, Captain.
Yeah, it's a little weird, I know, but this area is full of bugs and some other things that you don't like. Especially if you're playing on harder difficulty and the enemies will one-shot you because they're small hallways.
Fear not, Captain. I'll watch your back.
Yes, thank you for that. You can go the other side, but there is an elevator there and sometimes the guards will catch you. So let's just do this 100%. For a game that is based on other things, like, I don't know, more like dialogue and some other options, this last stage will really taste you with the shroud animation and the shroud mechanics and the animations that the guards have when they catch you. Sometimes they'll just ask you for a skill check, other times they'll just shoot you straight away, and I don't know what's the difference. Okay, now this is the next part. This one is not so hard. That was the last pit stop before you reach the end goal. The elevator is very, very near here. And this is the place where the iconoclasts will help you. At least in my case.
Get in there, troops! For Monarch! For Halcyon!
So the heavy boys are coming from that way. Thank you, Mirage, for letting me know. By the way, don't let your disguise fail. Just walk up to a normal guard.
Are you new here? I didn't think...
Pass the skill check. And then run again. Oh, why do I choose that door? And here is some kind of a trick. You have to unseal the door using the computer and then you just run. This is not restricted access. You can read some stuff along the way, but generally I like to skip everything. They are still fighting. The heavy boys are winning, I think. Okay, let's go. I just wanted to wait a little bit so I see where the guards are.
See what the fuss is about a blasted laptop.
Now this is very dangerous. They will one-shot you if they see you. Okay, we passed that stage as well.
Consider equipping a pack of Sam's special solvent stain-out remover. It's ruthless on residual blood splatter.
Now the hard part is this one.
This point.
After all, you're that in any... Sophia should be the one wasting her time with you, but you killed her. I'll have... Thankfully.
Now, I'm not sure where you find the keycard to pass this zone, but you'll have to fight that guy. So anyway, people will probably want to see me fight that guy. So let's fight him for a little while. I don't know what triggers his AI, or what triggers him to summon the drones, but... And you can't open the doors beforehand. So I think that's kind of a problem with this section of the game. Okay, he's not moving, which is kind of bad. And there is almost no cover. Even though you have the huge pillars, when they see you, they'll just gun you down. So my tactic is shoot him in the leg.
Kill germs. substance is resistant to cleaning efforts.
Okay, that was the hard part. But they do so much damage that they'll almost instantly kill you. Also, the barrels are put only on the outside of the map, so you can't really use them against him.
On your left, customer.
Let's run away, let's not risk it. The robot is not so hard to kill, but I just don't feel like, you know, grinding a lot of weapons again. He's supposed to be a stage boss, right?
Mega messy.
Can't get past that armor. We're not getting through. Justice, you're right.
And that's kind of the way to do it. As you can see, if you kill R.a.m, you'll kill also the stupid little drones, and there are so many of them, it's almost unbelievable. Oh yeah, that's a good way to lose your patience with this game. Just make a boss fight be so tedious. Oh, that's bad. Now we're getting into the really posh side of the prison. So you went from installation and stuff to quite charming.
Seems like a basic halcyon after all. Why must I always do everything myself?
Well, he didn't really put much of a struggle, but you can admire his artwork. The chairsman ski. Yeah, loser. Are you dead? Okay, that was not so bad, right? Also, he has some cameras, some stuff here. And this is all glass, or... The sky is flickering for some reason. Okay, let's open this one. That was his keycard we just used, and that's about it.
You made it. I can hardly believe my eyes. You didn't have to do this, you know. Risk your life just to save mine. No, I expect they didn't. You're a force of nature, aren't you? You've left the board in tatters, but Halcyon is still on the verge of starvation. I just hope we're not too late. You and I are going to have to work harder than ever to save Halcyon. I wish I could be as optimistic as you, but we have a serious problem on our hands. Earth has gone dark. We haven't received a single message in 3 years. There's been no communication, no signals, nothing. 2 years ago, the Earth's Directorate's frigate disappeared on their way back to Earth. We don't know what they discovered when they arrived, or if they arrived at all.
Earth is only an idea to us, but that idea is the bedrock the colony is built upon. If people were to find out it's gone dark, the shock could be too much to bear.
I don't want to imagine what'll happen once news gets out. Let's just keep this between us for now. Earth isn't going to help us. No one's going to help us now. Yes, certainly. I don't know what happened, but something must have gone. We have no connection. You might have heard of the Earth Directorate's frigate. Half the colony's entire military was on that ship. They were returning to Earth when they vanished without a trace. That was 2 years ago. We haven't heard a word from them. I wasn't trying to hide the truth from you, but after all you've done, I owe you an explanation. Yes, I experimented on the Hope's colonists. Each of my experiments ended in catastrophic failure. Each of my subjects died in agony. You are my first and only success. I didn't tell you about the others because I didn't want to. Thank you. Perhaps in time I'll learn to forgive myself. My apologies. I need to get a hold of myself. We've far more pressing issues to worry about right now. If you have any more questions, I had hoped your fellow colonists might hold the key to saving Halcyon, but I don't have nearly enough chemicals to revive them all. I'll do what I can. It's time I return to my lab. I'll try to save as many of the Hope's colonists as I can. I only hope you know what you're getting into. There isn't much of a colony left to run. We were going to save this colony, you know. That's what I told myself when I pulled you from the Hope. You and I were going to set everything right. Now, I don't know what to think. Earth is gone, and we're going to need a miracle to survive another I always suspected Halcyon might collapse one day. I just thought we would have more.
And that's about it, yeah.
The OSI teaches that everything in the universe happens according to the grand plan. But the stranger that arrived in Halcyon was an unplanned variable. From the moment he landed in Emerald Vale, his actions altered the course of history. The events on Tartarus brought about the end of the board's authority. But the board's mistakes would haunt the colony for decades to come. The damage they left behind would require the work of a generation to repair. Dr. Phineas Wells began reviving a handful of the Hope's colonists. Engineers, scientists, technicians, and intellectuals. They were among the brightest minds the Earth had ever sent out into the stars. The Hope scientists and engineers woke up in a colony descending headlong into total collapse. With no way to return to Earth, they had no choice but to band together and devote themselves to the cause of saving Halcyon. The people of Halcyon were nothing if not hardy. In the absence of the board's authority, many of the colony's settlements banded together with a single purpose in mind: survival. Life was especially hard in the years to come. Some towns dissolved by attrition and starvation, but most of them found a way to carry on. In the years to come, Halcyon was forced to reckon with its newfound freedom. The board was gone, and for better or worse, the colony was responsible for its own destiny. As the colony struggled to survive, the inspirational story of the iconoclasts spread like wildfire, and R.a.m was able to bring many of the smaller Terra 2 townships into the fold. However, his zealous obsession with spreading the word blinded him to the needs of a growing organization, and the movement was unsustainable at scale. The iconoclast way seemed to work best, and ultimately petered out on Monarch. Consumed by paranoia, Lilia Hagen took sublight salvage in a controversial direction, openly accusing board officials of an extraterrestrial conspiracy. One day, an accident at the Groundbreaker's docking bay silenced her forever. Time would tell if her replacement could keep the sublight family together. The collapse of Edgewater left its workers bereft of any purpose in life. Most of them made their way to Adelaide McDevitt's camp, hoping to ingratiate themselves into her favor. Adelaide accepted only a few to her community. The rest were turned away and likely died of starvation. Nevertheless, Adelaide's camp grew into a well-established town. Adelaide McDevitt refused to cooperate with the ongoing effort to save Halcyon from collapse. A sympathetic deserter stole a copy of her research and delivered it to the Hope's scientists. It is unclear how useful Adelaide's research was. An optimistic estimate suggests her work may have bought Halcyon another few years of survival. Adelaide would never know. She died that winter. Under the leadership of Junlei Tennyson, the Groundbreaker held firm against corporate influence. The ship's mechanical stability gave Junlei the time to educate a promising generation of engineers schooled in her family's traditions. The future of the Groundbreaker looks promising. The rediscovery of the Hope and the abandonment of the lifetime employment program forced Byzantium to come to terms with some uncomfortable realities about the state of Halcyon. While Byzantines were reluctant to surrender the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the board's diminished authority gave them little choice in the matter. Nearly everyone had to learn to make do with less. Some even had to get jobs. It was a dark time indeed. Your influence further cemented Ellie's perspective. She understood she could never truly rely on others, so she set about making sure she wouldn't have to. With a steady income from the life insurance payouts, she was finally able to afford a ship of her own. She enjoyed a long and infamous career running missions across the system. Some of them were even legal. Life in Halcyon was sobering for Felix Millstone. The grand revolution he dreamed of never came. There was no great awakening for the colony, no celebrations in the streets. There was only the hard, desperate work of trying to repair a broken colony. Felix never had a head for numbers, but if there was labor to be done, he was there to help. Eventually, Felix realized that the work of a revolution was done with two hands. As much as he enjoyed his adventures aboard the Unreliable, the vicar, known as Max, eventually decided that it was time to move on, to live out the life he had sought so long to create. He knew there were many in the colony who carried burdens much worse than the ones he had struggled with, and he devoted himself to easing their suffering wherever he could. He only ever took up arms again to defend the defenseless. Unshackled from a lifetime of striving and fighting the universe and himself, Vicar Maximilian de Soto was finally at peace. Though Parvati eventually grew comfortable aboard the Unreliable, she never quite came out of her shell. She seemed to prefer the company of Ada to the crew, and she could often be found neck-deep in cables and grease, telling Ada funny stories from her childhood. While the colony fell into chaos, she found an island of relative peace with Ada, and they formed an unusual bond. She decided to remain aboard the Unreliable permanently as its chief and sole engineer. As hard as she tried to drink them away, Nyoka's memories eventually overcame her. Traveling with the crew served as a constant reminder of the family she'd lost, and so she eventually returned to Monarch to get back to what she found most comfortable: the deep end of a bottle and the far end of a trail. Few have seen her since, but travelers often swear they hear her and her machine gun in the night, screaming swears and spitting bullets. The SAM unit that accompanied you spread awareness of the product line's superior sanitation and maintenance capabilities across what was left of the colony. This led to a boost in SAM unit sales. Did you know that SAM units are the longest-lasting, toughest-acting cleaning solution in Halcyon? Minister Clark was released from house arrest, and his contact with you gave him a sense of renewed purpose and vigor. Once it became clear that no help would be coming from Earth, he threw his considerable efforts and talents into helping Halcyon manage the crisis before it. As for Dr. Phineas Wells, he spent his remaining years in his orbital lab. He was never able to come to terms with his own past, troubled by the decision of placing all his faith in the first colonist he ever revived, the infamous captain of the Unreliable. The revival project yielded mixed results. Phineas, weighed down by limited support and his own guilt, struggled to revive more than a handful of scientists and engineers. They made a heroic effort to solve the colony's problems, but with small numbers and facing long odds, their solutions never caught on. Only a few of the Hope's colonists were successfully revived. Wells died before he could see the fruits of his labor. He passed away a haunted man, crushed by the guilt of his failures. Small, petty factions squabble over what remains of the colony. Every attempt to reach out to Halcyon's neighbors is met with silence. And what about you? the unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon. You brought an end to the chaos on Tartarus, and proved yourself the most capable leader left in the colony. You administered the colony in your own image. With the old power of the board destroyed, a new government of Halcyon rose with you at its center. With your steady hand, you guided Halcyon through the turbulent years that were to follow, and helped ensure the survival of the colony until the end of your days. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.